just to, bring up to speed with what we are discussing today, we have the new, or rather the proposed finance bill of 2024, and we have some additional figures here. Now, the government proposes to at least raise revenue up to 323 billion in taxes. Now, some of the additional values, or rather taxes that are proposed to be increased, that will be a value-added tax on bread, and that is at 16%. Then we have motor vehicle tax that will be 2.5% paid at the time of insurance of an insurance cover, time of issuance of an insurance cover. Remember that. Then we have 10% excise duty on motorcycle. We have telephone and data up from 15 to 20%. Then we have money transfer services from 15 to 20%. Those are some of the additional taxes that, should this finance bill of 2024 see the light of the day, then Kenyans will have to, bear with those increases in tax just to fund government operation. Then we have other taxes like betting, gaming, and of course lottery that has been proposed, an increase of from 12.5% to 20%. Then we have digital space that still Kenyans, should this see the light of the day, will have to cater for that. And this is the discussion that we are having today. And of course, you're talking about matters state of the nation, where you talk matters politics and everything in between, things that concerns you, the common citizen. And of course, to help us unpack this is one and only Kennedy Ondiek. This is the UDA Nyanza coordinator and of course political commentator. Thank you so much, Mr. Ondiek, for making time.
Thank you so much, my brother.
All right. Just straight away and plain and simple, when you look at the proposed finance bill of 2024, it proposes additional 323 billion shillings. And of course, the bone of contention here is the increase in some of basic commodities, like let's say the 16% VAT on bread. Well, to many, this goes against the promise that Kenya Kwanza Road to Power. And of course, it was pretty clear to lower the cost of living. But given the standard that you're seeing, and of course, this proposed finance bill of 2024, should it see the light of the day, then this means Kenyans will have to dig a little bit deeper into their pocket. Has the government forgotten the hustler?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what we need to start from is what do we want as a country?
All right.
And where are we also as a country? We first of all, I want to unpack for our viewers the whole concept of finance bill, because okay, you see, we are discussing, in fact, I've been in different channels and I'm going to be in many others, trying to explain or maybe let people know that number one, this finance bill is not yet operational.
Right.
It is a bill. And a bill is a document presented in Parliament for purposes of being debated, being negotiated, being evaluated, being analyzed, and finally being voted. And so being signed into law if it finally passes through a vote of Parliament. So as we speak, there is no tax which has been imposed on anything as we speak. Okay. It should be known from the onset, or else whatever we may discuss may make no sense. Once Chinua Achebe wrote in his book, A Man of the People, that I have to admit this from the onset, or else the story I'm going to make, I'm going to say will make no sense. So members of the public and the people must know that this is not law yet. Meaning, I know there are shopkeepers who have already increased the prices of bread as we speak. They are in the villages. In fact, thieves are in the villages. Shops, I'm aware that there are shops which have increased the prices of bread already because they have heard that there is tax which is going to be put on bread. This is a proposal which should take effect in case it is passed into law. It can only take effect by June. So it has not started. A bill is a proposal sent to Parliament, either by private individual or from the government, where we have private sponsored bill or government bill. Finance bill is a government bill, which is a proposal of government on how to raise revenue. We know that we are above 3 trillion budget of Kenya, and I'm sure the 2024-2025 appropriation bill that is going to be the budget is going to be more than 3.5 trillion. The government must prepare in advance how to go and cover the variance, because you see, when we have value A being the budget, what we are expecting to get, that is now the overall budget.
All right.
But in this overall budget, we are going to have the sources of income. And as we speak, the sources of income that the government has may not be enough to take care of the overall budget, creating what is called a variance. So this variance must be found from a finance bill that is going to define different types of taxes which are supposed to be imposed on different activities and commodities which are either imported or produced locally, so that the government can raise revenue. Now, the duty of the state is to collect taxes, because that is where they get revenue to sustain all the activities. Kenyans at different levels of economy and employment want increase in salaries. They want timely payment of salaries and the rest. The government can only do that if they raise revenue. And so, finance bill has been proposed by the cabinet, by the treasury. The treasury proposes it, sends it to, then it is taken to the cabinet. The cabinet will look at it. But what will now affect the people will be the appropriation bill. You know, the finance bill is a way by which the government is going to raise revenue, which includes different things, including taxation. So tax being the cardinal and the biggest source of revenue for the government must make people jittery. Now come to this 323 billion proposed taxation. One, there are things which are not necessary. And if you tax them, the government will not get the revenue needed. If you impose taxes on those commodities which are not in use by many people, you are not going to raise necessary revenue. But also, the government will be cautious enough not to impose taxes on the commodities which are used frequently and by very many people, to the extent that it will disenfranchise or cause a problem to these people who utilize this. I know there are so many proposals in the finance bill, but you people will only point at the bread. You will point at the very few things, and you point at the bread because there are people who want you to look at the bread. As I analyze this, I want to tell you that the taxes which are going to be collected are not going to be as at this finance bill, because this is a proposal from the government. It is being taken to Parliament. The Parliament is going to discuss it, debate it, and they are going to vote it. Members of Parliament are in Parliament. They are supposed to discuss it. So I think this is still a proposal. It's not supposed to cause a lot of tumbojoto in the country for nothing.
Fair enough. This is a proposal, that's yes, but you and I know that we live in this country and we have seen what is happening. Well, this is a proposal. It will be subjected to public hearing, and of course, should it be just the way it's supposed to be, key amendment and of course some few adjustment here and there. Fair enough. But my biggest worry, and of course this is a question that I'm posing to you, with this proposal we saw the last finance bill of 2023, the way it was rushed, and some of the proposals that were made by the government pass without even a blink of an eye. Well, my biggest worry, and this is the concern of Kenyans, that this finance bill that is being proposed right now will pass to public hearing and of course scrutiny, something like that. But however, at the end of the day, the government will always have the final say. Don't you think probably this might be the final paper? And of course, in as much as we will be here to debate about how maybe this is not the final, but probably this is what we'll see at the end of it all.
I don't think whether it is correct to say that the government will have their final say, because it's true, government will have the final say, simply because I don't know what you mean by government. Well, because in this mind,
let me take you back. Let me take you back to the last financial bill of 2023.
Are you using the word government to refer to the executive only, or you are using the government to refer to the collective nature of government from the legislature, judiciary.
The whole umbrella.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because first of all, it has been proposed by the Treasury. Now it will. This is the first reading, of course. From here, it will move to public participation, where Kenyans will have to put their input.
Yes.
And of course, they'll make some recommendation, just like we saw the last finance bill. And of course, they were the bone of contention. That is the housing levy, remember? And Kenyans, majority of Kenyans were against this. Despite that, it passed. And today we are talking about another something. So chances are this particular finance bill, the way it is, might see the light of the day, given the tyranny of number, because it will be subjected now to voting.
Then
and
why
does it, in our Kenyan history.
Why does it worry you if it will go to parliament and it will be voted yes?
Because that is the concern of many Kenyans.
Then are you saying that there's not going to be public participation?
It will be there.
That is now.
But the account will not, most of the time, the account will not count.
See, we have to know the difference between the finance bill of last year and finance bill of this year.
All right.
First, when the year began, when President William Ruto came in to power for the first time, there was a lot. One, we had a lot of public debt pending, and we had a pending Eurobond, which had to be settled at $1.5 billion. That one was very necessary. And that's the reason why, 1.2 billion, that's why we had to go and take a Eurobond of 1.5 billion. And that one necessitated the government to find the quickest means of raising revenue. Number two, the government came in against a manifesto of Kenya Kwanza government. And William Ruto, in his sense, said that Kenyans are living in bad state. You only saw it when there were floods, when you realize that Kenyans Kumbe are living in very terrible situation. That is even when opposition now asked the government to give the affordable housing to those who are staying in those places. It's because what William Ruto saw about where Kenyans stay, they didn't see. They only saw it when now the floods pointed them, and they went to Kibra, they went to Madari to see for themselves. So when William Ruto said he needed to put a cash base to build these houses, they didn't understand. But I'm very happy that finally they came to vindicate the president when they realized that Kenyans are living in very horrible situation, and actually affordable housing is needed, and that's why they asked the president to give those houses to those who suffered the floods. I can tell you that even this current finance bill, I'm very sure that the president do not and the government do not be willing to impose tax on bread. It is now duty of Kenyans to go to public participation and let them present memoranda and say that we don't want them, because it is now in public. They are supposed to now say, based on because there are more than 250 amendments which have been proposed. They are now supposed to say, based on this amendment, we propose the following. Based on this amendment, we propose the following. Even the president, initial proposal for housing levy was 3%, if you can remember. But based on public intervention and involvement, it was reduced to 1.5%.
But the public did not want the housing.
The public, who is the public?
The Kenyans, of course.
No, what about the Kenyans? What about the Kenyans who are now buying those houses?
Well, this is what is on the ground. During the public hearing, majority of Kenyans say that we don't want this housing. Regardless.
What was the majority?
Kenyans who are giving their views during that public hearing. They give their input, and majority were against the housing.
I am saying that if I am here to help you interrogate the finance bill, then you can give me time to interrogate for the Kenyans.
You have time.
But if you are here to argue with me, then I will say, talk to the Kenyans so that I go away. Because you have called me here so that I shed light. Like I started by saying, finance bill is a document which is processed, prepared, and is being taken to parliament. If there is a problem with the old finance bill, I've already explained to you the circumstances under which we went through with that finance bill. And when we talked about housing levy, it was reduced from 3% to 1.5% because of public participation. But the president and the government could not do away with it. And that's why it was left at 1.5%, so that these Kenyans who don't have good houses can access those houses. And that's why I'm saying the president has been vindicated when the opposition leaders went to Madhari and they saw Kenyans suffering, and they even say now those affordable housing ziko wapi, zipeane kwa hawa watu. They asked it. So that one tells you how important affordable housing was, and the president is very straight that he's going to continue with that affordable housing program up to the end of his term, because Kenyans need good housing. Now, Kenyans have been put to task that there is taxation which is going to be put on bread. I want to see memoranda being written by Kenyans, because it is going to be to public participation. So the president or the government will have a task of convincing Kenyans why they need that 16% on bread. That is now why they must go and participate. I always say, I've served in the House, in County Assembly. You realize that now, whenever something is brought to public like this, Kenyans are busy discussing it, they don't want to talk about it. They misunderstand it, they are given wrong information from the opposition, and then they say it is the situation. And personally, I want to tell you that running a government is not easy. And you can only run a government when you have revenue to run that government.
All right.
If Kenyans are going to find it hard on some particular areas, then they can just talk out during public participation.
All right. Fair enough. And to set the record straight, nobody is saying housing is bad, but I'm just arguing about now the aspect of public participation. If indeed their views will actually be heard, that is the point and the bone of contention here. But nobody is saying housing is bad. So that one I want it to be on record. Well, let's switch gears to rather another development that, of course, that is happening, and I'm talking about now the motion that was presented against the impeachment of that is Agriculture CS Linturi, and of course things really, folded from at least 140 members of parliament giving a nod for at least for this motion to go on until now, the final voting time where the members, that is a house, was split between the Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Kwanza. And many people were asking, or rather the opposition blamed the government for the Kenya Kwanza side for, playing some fishy games, and there were allegations of some members being coerced and even allegations of bribery. Well, I want to take further to borrow your knowledge on this. Do you think maybe politicians are playing politics in matters very serious like fertilizer scandal?
Okay, thank you. I think about the fertilizer scandal, it amounts to corruption. We are looking at the scandals are forms of corruption we have had in the country, and we have seen different accusations left, right, and center. But for me, what I always look at is that when Mithika Linturi is accused, how do we deal with the fact that Mithika Linturi is a minister, and where does the role of the minister end, and where does the role of officers start? Because as we speak, there are people who have been arrested because of that scandal. There are people who have been arrested at different levels based on the fact that they either admitted wrong fertilizer or they participated in a process of acquiring that very wrong fertilizer. I have always told Kenyans, and I'm going to repeat myself properly here, that corruption doesn't just amount to big fish or small fish. We have to know that the minister does not sign any tender. He does not propose any budget. He does not propose any process of acquiring a particular service or a particular commodity. What happens? I always say that when we want to look at corruption, and Kenyans, if we want to talk about corruption and fight corruption, we must deal with the corruption from where it begins. Where does it begin? There's no scandal in this country which will take place without the procurement officer. Who is the procurement officer? Who started, who is the engineer, or who generated the bills of quantities? And what is required of that particular commodity? Therefore, when we say Mithika Linturi is supposed to go home, we must first of all know, did Mithika Linturi participate knowingly or unknowingly, or did he do anything or omit anything leading to a reason for us to suspect or otherwise believe that he took part in that particular corruption. Last time, when he was being charged in Parliament and he was being interviewed, he was being cross-examined, his lawyer asked the Honorable Wamboka, or who he was called Honorable what? The one who sponsored the bill. He was asked, are you aware that some people have been arrested? He said, those are small fish.
Yeah.
This small fish, he who has been arrested is the one who signed procurement. He is the one who sat on a tender committee. He is the one who even sat in a tender evaluation team, which finally awarded the tender. Minister doesn't sit there. Minister doesn't award a tender. Minister doesn't sign anything. Minister is not even the AIE holder of that ministry.
Right.
How do you expect the minister, who is not an IE holder, to go home for a mistake committed by a person who is not himself? That is one. That is why Militoka could go nowhere. No corruption. No one has been coerced. Number two, if there's evidence of corruption, then the committee would have been informed. Committee was informed on a lot of rumors. You also watched the process of Parliament, because our Parliament is a public thing. You watched it. When the person, the honorable member who brought the motion was being asked questions, he was not willing to answer them. He was willing to bring propaganda. He was willing to bring rumors. He was being asked, in that particular tender, was it quoted as tender for supply and delivery of fake fertilizer? He could not answer that because he was accused of supply of fake fertilizer. Let us look at things from the angle they actually fall. And finally, members of parliament are elected by Kenyans.
All right.
If they made a decision like that, they represented the interest of Kenyans. I cannot judge. I don't sit in parliament.
All right. Well, there is a question now, the process and the manner at which these proceedings took place. Some argue this took like the judicial some sort of process. Do you think maybe was this a setup, a judicial some sort of mechanism in place for this particular impeachment motion, or should they have expected something else? Maybe the 11-member committee going to the ground and investigating this to give Kenyans concrete information and verdict at the end of the day, because somebody has to take responsibility, and the ball lies at the doorstep of the ministry or Minister of Agriculture.
Let me tell you. First, Parliament is a quasi-judicial body. Meaning, if it's a quasi-judicial body, a committee of Parliament has right to summon witnesses and has right to hear any such matters brought before them in relation to any area of their jurisdiction. If a minister has been challenged to Parliament in a way of being indicted into Parliament so that he can defend, he has to appear and defend himself. In fact, the reason why most governors, when they are impeached, they go to court and their cases are dropped and they go back to office is because if the law was not followed, he who alleges has a duty to prove.
Okay.
If you present a matter that Linturi has involved himself in corruption amounting to delivery and supply of fake fertilizers, you must prove it. And you can only prove it in a quasi-judicial process, which is Committee of Parliament. Then this committee makes its report to Parliament. The Parliament has a duty to debate it or pass it as recommended.
Okay.
The recommendations which were there were to the effect that after they listened to everything, they took back the matter to the whole House so that the whole House can decide. Personally, I can tell you that Linturi was only being accused because he is a minister in charge of that ministry. But I want to tell Kenyans, those who are causing corruption in this country are not ministers. Because if you are a procurement officer and the minister is forcing you or telling you to do something which is against the law, why don't you refuse? I want Kenyans to wake up and say, fine, the minister told me to sign this, but I said I could not sign it. We want to see him fired because the minister forced him. Let us respect the fact that our minister is a Kenyan, procurement officer is a Kenyan, supply chain manager is a Kenyan, the storekeeper is a Kenyan.
Fair enough.
Whoever received this fake fertilizer is a Kenyan.
Fair enough.
If they are arrested, let the law take the course.
All right. Well, there is another very troubling some sort of, proceeding, the drawn-out nature of the proceeding, and of course the manner at which this particular impeachment motion took place. Remember, it was now brought down to party line. We have the Azimio versus Kenya Kwanza. Well, if you follow keenly, a matter of national interest like this one that involves, some sort of, national security, because food is one of the key pillars of Kenya Kwanza government. And we are talking about fertilizers who are actually given fake fertilizers. And these are farmers who demand answers. When you see the nature to which this particular proceeding was taking place, it now boiled down to Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio affair. Don't you think maybe you can read some sort of malice in this?
Basically, there was malice from the word go by accusing a wrong person. You see, when you take the minister to be charged in parliament for what he doesn't procure, for where there's someone who should take responsibility. At the same time, police have already arrested people. Then you carry this matter to parliament so that you charge a minister who has been given a duty by the president on what you also know very well that he doesn't procure. These people, all these members of parliament, know the process of procurement. The minister, actually, as I said it, doesn't sit in any procurement committee. The minister doesn't even write an advertisement. So when it comes to the house, parliament is obviously divided into two houses. There's no day parliament will ever be one house.
Okay.
And that is no parliament.
And that
so if the matter has been brought by opposition in a manner likely to impact negatively on the performance, on the honor and respect people should have for the executive, the members of majority must come to the rescue of
and
that.
Even as we wind up this discussion, well, we have cases that involve high-profile officials in the government. And of course,
those cases
most of these
fail.
cases, they fail. And that is the problem, because
as a lawyer, I will tell you.
And what is happening? Why?
I wish you give me good time to explain that, so that Kenyans can know why the people they call big fish always get away with it. Simply because, one, in crime, and this one we are talking about corruption, that's a crime. In crime, we look at two things. We look at the guilty action, the wrong act of taking the public resource or misusing the office. And then there's guilty mind. That is mens rea. We must check, did this person intend to act in a manner likely to break this particular law or to go against a particular prohibition which has been put. So, the reason why these big cases will automatically fail is because, number one, if you take Linturi to court, for example, that he was involved in the procurement and delivery and distribution of fake fertilizer, the first question which will be checked is, was he part of the team or did he participate in any way in any action that is similar or can be equated to distribution or supply or procurement? They will look at procurement. Who does procurement? The minister doesn't do procurement. They look at who does distribution. The minister doesn't do distribution. They will also look at who does receiving. The minister doesn't receive anything. So the next thing they will ask, then how did he participate in this? You will find the court will be left there with no any evidence as to that action. Then he will be released. Then you will say courts have been corrupt. The thing is, those small fish you call small fish are the ones who are corrupt, because they are the ones who do this action, and then they want minister to take responsibility. When the court goes to check the responsibility of the minister, it's very different. It's not involved. So Kenyans, if I am to conclude on this matter, as you say, time is up, it's okay. But I'm saying, for Kenyans to know where we will help us is, number one, the small fish of Kenya must act and say no to corruption. And if they say no to corruption, then it means all our procurement officers in this country will come and say, we are not going to sign anything. We are not going to award a tender to anybody we are told to give it. We are not going to award any tender if we are sure in evaluation that that tender did not pass. We are not going to take any bribe because these procurement officers are very corrupt. In fact, let it go on record. Procurement officers are billionaires in this country. They are so corrupt.
All right.
And you see, somebody is employed when he's 28 years. He wants to be a procurement officer up to 60 years.
All right.
This is a professional thief. You want to charge a minister who came there 1 year and is going to leave after 5 years. Then you say that is a big fish. The worst fish is this small fish who is corrupt and is allowing the big fish to steal. Thank you.
Well, and even as you trade the accusation to now the small fish, well, if you run a ministry, like let's say Ministry of Agriculture, and of course recently we had Ministry of, back then it was trade, CS, that is Moses Kuria, who was implicated in the
You will
scandal,
implicate these big
in the
people.
oil scandal. And this is the question, Mr. Ondiek. Well, at the end of the day, accountability now lies from the higher power. While all these are happening under your watch, then what does it mean about you as the accounting?
I'm telling you, my friend. I'm telling you, my friend. People are even accusing the government of Ruto of being corrupt. They say corruption. I'm telling you, there's nothing happens under anybody's watch. Kilam Kenya has been given responsibility. One is given responsibility to be a minister. Another one, who is another Kenyan, is also given a ministry to be in charge of disposition of contracts. There's no corruption in this country which is done by a minister. Never. Even in this your institution, the CEO of this institution is the vice chancellor, for example, Kenyatta University. Yes. But that vice chancellor does not sign a contract for supply of chicken in the kitchen. He doesn't sign that. There's somebody who signs that. So the problem which Kenyans have, they want to quickly say there's corruption in a ministry and they want a minister to be charged. Let individuals who are responsible. That's why Moses Kuria. Where could you get Moses Kuria? That's why many governors are not being arrested, because they are billionaires, yes. They have stolen the money, yes. But they did not steal. You will not find them having stolen. Somebody has facilitated their stealing by awarding a tender to a contractor who will not deliver, or accepting to pay a voucher which has not been done. So a road has not been constructed, and a procurement officer who evaluates this allows that voucher to pass through, and then you ask the minister, why is he having billions? So the people who must help Kenyans, and if you allow me, don't stop me. I want people who must help Kenyans. The people who must help Kenyans are only 3 people. One person is a procurement officer. In this country, at whichever institution, at whichever level, procurement officers must first of all accept to help Kenyans by stopping corruption. Number 2, accountants must help Kenyans by not paying vouchers of jobs and activities which have not been done. Let them not pay so that Kenyans cannot have roads built on air and they are paid for. And finally, auditors in this country must audit properly, so that if you go to an audit, or if you go to audit an institution, get the mistake there, write it correctly. Don't go with the head of that institution to the toilet and then you come back and then you cover it. It is being covered. The auditors cover, accountants pay wrong things, and the procurement officers award wrong tenders. These are the 3 people who must stop their mistakes, so that Kenyans can be free from corruption. Or else we are going to talk about corruption. You will be dead when you have talked about corruption. Somebody will be born talking about corruption and will die again. It will be corruption of centuries, because Kenyans are looking for opportunity not to serve but to be corrupt. Thank you.
Well, that is Mr. Ondiek. That is Kennedy Ondiek, South Nyanza UDA coordinator and of course political commentator.